Welcome back, and just as we've been saying all year, the Bitcoin cycle seems to be over, but in today's video, we're going to be exploring many different topics, including the XRP ETF, the Grayscale IPO, Iris Energy, and some of the other Bitcoin mining companies that pivoted to AI, and also MicroStrategy, the AI companies, and we're also going to explore the crypto companies. I want you guys to keep in mind, the prices that you may see on the screen may be different by the time you're watching this video, but in today's video, we're exploring the macro environment, zooming in on individual assets and individual areas of the market to understand where we are in the cycle, because as you guys know, Ansem, a well-known call or crypto influencer, key opinion leader as they call them, he flipped from bearish to bullish literally at the all-time record highs in October of 2025, and we've been going down ever since. And this goes into where we are in the cycle, right? We're 18 months after the Bitcoin halving. We're after the 550-day mark, according to the Bitcoin halving tracker, which historically has marked the top of the market in every single cycle previously. While there's a lot of YouTubers and influencers talking about the extended cycle, the same thing they said in 2021, and there was no extended cycle. The extended cycle top that they were calling for ended up being the macro bottom in the market. And so in today's video, we're going to be exploring where we are in the cycle, where we're going, and more importantly, what we need to do, because remember, the bulls make money, the bears make money, but the greedy, the pigs get to the slaughterhouse. Anyway, moving right along, don't forget to give this video an absolutely free thumbs up and also hit that subscribe button. That way you never miss a new video. We upload every single day of the year to bring you the latest happening in the financial world. Let's get into today's video. Now, what's important to understand is that we are in a macro downtrend, and macro means everything that's going on in the markets globally, not just crypto, not just stocks, not just crypto stocks, everything. And this is where Peter Brandt comes in. He's a well-known futures trader since 1975, been trading longer than many of us have even been on this planet. He said, is everybody ready for a market top? And he posted the NASDAQ E-mini 100, which shows basically no support above this upper band line. He said the bulls claim that it's not possible for a market top because there are too many bears. Maybe, maybe not. He said, all I can say is that this chart is not bullish. I'm simply advising all to remain seated, but know where the exit door is located. And what's really important in any investing market, right? Whether it's crypto, stocks, housing, whatever it is, you have to know when to exit, and you want to be exited or exiting before everybody else, because if everybody's going for the door at the same time, your orders may not get filled, and therefore the market goes lower, then your orders don't get filled again, goes lower, and before you know it, we're at the market bottom and you couldn't sell anything in the cycle. Now, we've been talking about this when we talk about the psychology of the markets, when we talk about where we are in terms of the psychology of the markets, but this Bitcoin halving tracker shows it exactly. And Ansem flipping from bearish to bullish, because he flipped to bearish in end of September, early October, and then all of the bots got to him. The bots on X, the bots on YouTube got to him and convinced him that he was wrong. And then he bought the top of the market and he flipped bullish literally at the top of the market. And listen, I'm not going to say that, I don't get nervous when I see the market moving higher, when I see the market hitting new all-time highs like in October, because I called the macro top in July of 2025 and we went higher just a few times in terms of the Bitcoin price after that. So I got a little bit nervous, but we continue to play out our thesis, and we have been making more money in the downtrend than we have in the uptrend. Why? Because everybody was looking forward to the uptrend, but nobody was looking forward to the downtrend. And so we were betting against the market going higher, meaning the market's going lower. And we were exiting crypto positions, stock positions, and we were starting to bet against the market going higher. And we've covered some of this, right? Inverse ETFs, leveraged ETFs, puts on individual stocks and cryptos. And while we were doing this, right, we were literally doing exactly what Jim Chanos was doing, exactly what Michael Saylor was doing with MicroStrategy. And regardless, the bulls, they never turned bearish. They never flipped their thesis. They continued to say, oh no, now it's going to be a 5-year cycle. Oh, well, now we have an extended cycle. Oh, well, now it's going to be 2027 or 2028. That's going to be the bull cycle. Guys, in the long enough time horizon, yes, the market is going to go much higher, but in the short term, we're here to make money in the market. We're here to play on the volatility. That's what traders do, right? Now, I'm not saying we're all traders regularly, right? Because let's remember this, okay? Most good traders like Peter Brandt and many others, what I've learned is that they don't make trade, like this whole day trading thing is nonsense, right? If somebody's telling you to day trade, they don't know what the F they're talking about, and they're probably in losses regularly. The way to trade is look and wait and be patient and wait for, very clear signals that something's going to go higher or something's going to go lower, and then you go heavy into that trade. And so in the last market cycle, when FTX collapsed, we were ready for that because we were calling and saying that the bottom of the market was going to be in the Q4 of that year. And sure enough, it was. And so while everybody else was freaking out about FTX collapsing, we were buying the dip. The other thing to keep in mind is that every single trade that you make is not going to be a winner. Every single asset that you invest in is not going to be a winner. And that brings us to the Bankless guys, specifically Ryan, one of the hosts of Bankless and also an Ethereum maximalist. He said, if this is the end of the cycle, then it was a weird cycle. If the bull market didn't reach euphoria, then the bear market won't reach despair. Just a slow apathy grind down. Now, here's the deal. I don't necessarily agree that euphoria in the markets was not hit. I don't even think that it was a weird cycle. The cycle played out exactly as it has in previous cycles. Maybe not to the degree, to the percentage gains that we saw in previous cycles, but this diminishing returns that you see happens in almost every single asset, right? People end up just top chasing. They're chasing last cycle's returns. It's the same thing like an injury lawyer saying, well, we just recovered $50 million from somebody who got hit by a car. But they always tell you like future results don't necessarily, or past results don't mirror what's going to happen in the future. And the same thing happens here in crypto, in stocks, right? Euphoria was in the middle of the year with the Bitcoin treasury companies when they popped to the upside because everybody was getting into them. Bitcoin treasury, Ethereum treasury companies, and most of them are down 97% since then. If that's not euphoria, I don't know what is. The other thing to keep in mind about this cycle is that we have a lot of macro conditions that are significantly negative. People are not, because of inflation over the last 4 or 5 years has been so significant. Wages have not gone up. In fact, wages seem to be going down, especially when you adjust them to the cost of inflation. And now we're hearing about all this home ownership situation, right? Hidden home ownership costs nearly $16,000 a year. Owning a home now costs nearly $16,000 a year in annual hidden costs, according to Zillow's and Thumbtack's report. That's about $1,300 a month beyond mortgage payments. This includes insurance, maintenance, and property taxes. And this is up almost 5% from last year. Now, why is this so important to understand? Because when we're thinking about the markets, right, the boomer generation is moving on. They're passing on, right? And they're passing on their assets as well. They're passing on their homes as well. And their families who are getting all of these assets, they still think that they're worth like what they were 20 years ago, or even, a few years ago, but they're not, right? Like Coca-Cola as a company is not as widely used or desired as it was maybe 10, 15 years ago because people are more health conscious. People are more understanding of the chemicals in these drinks, right? And so while Coca-Cola may diversify their business, the stock doesn't move higher the same rate that it did decades ago. The same way that we're seeing home ownership, prices are staying elevated and they're looking at all the 50-year mortgage, portable mortgages, all this kind of, financial gibberish to go back and forth. But the bottom line is that people don't have money. That's the problem. People don't have money. And so in my view, this explains what is going to occur. They have to print more money. They have to get more money in the hands of Americans so that Americans can own homes, so that Americans can pay their rent, so that Americans can keep stimulating the economy that we live in. Because otherwise, people are just buying food and shelter cost and transportation, and that's it. They're not buying anything else. And we're seeing the issues across the board with a lot of stocks and companies that are reporting their earnings saying that the consumer is getting weaker. The only fix for that is to get the consumer more money. And how do they get more money? Well, they have to print more money. That creates more inflation. And this, yes, for assets is very bullish, but it has to get worse before they can print that money. Because remember, during the pandemic, they printed about $5 trillion. So what is going to happen this time? I mean, President Trump said on a recent interview that they're going to print $20 trillion. And while that number seems crazy, I don't think that it's so far off from what they're going to print. But a lot of this is going to come with stimulus and probably like budgetary bills in Congress. So we have to keep a really close eye on this because this could indicate where the bottom of the market is when they agree or start talking about printing that actual money. Because, I mean, you can't, if you have a mortgage and then you have $16,000 in hitting costs for the home, either you're not taking care of it, which lowers the value of the home, or you are taking care of it and you're going into more debt. And I think this is a big issue that has not really been addressed yet. But, you know, the cycle is not going to move up to the same degree that we've seen in previous cycles because people have less money that they can spend because the cost of everything that they have to buy, food, shelter, transportation, stuff like that, that's gone up and that has not come back down, right? And so, you know, I would say salaries probably haven't gone up to the rate to catch the rate of inflation. So people are making less money now than they were making before the pandemic, even though they may be getting paid more. They're actually getting paid less. And that brings us to Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy. So there were some rumors posted about MicroStrategy potentially selling some of their Bitcoin. Now, Michael Saylor, this was basically wallet movements that were flagged. And Michael Saylor responded saying there's no truth to this rumor. And I actually got on CNBC the morning that we saw Bitcoin hit under $95,000 for the first time, I think, since the beginning of 2025. And by the way, I think Bitcoin is going much lower. Now, it's not just Bitcoin. It's a lot of the other cryptos. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But let's first listen to what Michael Saylor says here, because I want you to see, like, he's not changing his tune, even though we are at the end of the cycle, even though the trend is down, even though they're having a harder and harder time raising more and more money, and their stock price has been cratering. I mean, this MicroStrategy stock is down almost 50% since the middle of the year, which was peak euphoria. And I think it's going much lower. But again, you can still make money here. We've been making money since the middle of the year when we called the top of the market, betting that the price was going to not go higher. And sure enough, it hasn't. And I think it still has more downside. There is going to be a day that I flip bullish on the stock and start buying the stock and going long on the stock. But we're not there just yet. I don't think we're going to be there at least until probably the middle of 2026, if not later. Let's listen in.
Saylor is here, strategy founder and executive chairman. Good morning to you. What do you think? 150 by the end of the year? What do you think's happening here?
You know, I think we all want to go to the moon, but if you want to ride the rocket, you got to be prepared to pull the G's. Over 5 years, Bitcoin's had like 6 brutal drawdowns. If you roll the clock back 13 months, we were sitting around 68,000. And then after the Trump election, we had this incredible rally from 68 to 106,000 in 5 weeks. If you go back 14 months, we were about 55,000. And so if you said we're going to go from 55,000 to 94,000 in 14 months, that would have exceeded any reasonable investor's expectations. Over 5 years, Bitcoin's up about 50% a year on average for the 5 years. Gold and S&P are setting the cost of capital at 14%. My company's strategy is up 71%, equivalent to NVIDIA. There's no other stock in the S&P that's done any better. So I think the volatility comes with the territory. If you're going to be a Bitcoin investor, you need a 4-year time horizon, and you need to be prepared to handle the volatility in this market.
So when you look at the price right now, and then we'll talk about the implications for strategy, but when you look at the price right now, what does the upside at this moment look like to you, and what does the downside in this moment look like to you?
You know, I feel like we put in a pretty strong base of support around here. There's an incredible amount of leverage coming out of the system, a lot of liquidation. A lot of the OG holders were selling at the $100,000 level. And so I'm fairly comfortable at this level. I would think that we'll build from this base and we'll rally from here. Obviously, it's hard to make a forecast for the end of the year right now, given what's happened over the past few weeks, and especially the shift in the macro environment. But as you know, my view is Bitcoin's going to outperform gold. It's going to outperform the S&P. It is digital capital. And so if you're a long-term investor, this is the place to be.
So now it appears that Michael Saylor is flipping the thesis because of the macro. And this is really important to understand because when everything is going down, right? It's not going to be like Bitcoin is going to be saved. And when you do see, like we've seen with, for instance, Internet Computer, where it's inversing the market, where it's going higher when the market's going down, these are indicators, right? There's becoming disconnections going on. And these disconnections typically indicate even more bearish sentiment and the market rotating from bull market to bear market. In my view, this is all very, very bearish. But again, we can make money in a bear market. How do we do that? Well, we also have to look at what's happening with the Bitcoin mining companies to AI. This user, Stock Market Nerd on X, said 185,000 followers. He said, maybe Iris Energy keeps working extremely well as an investment. I don't own it or pay attention to it, so I don't know. But this is not how I want a board member at a company I own talking. If I'm an executive team, I am quietly asking him to stop. Tempted to call this a red flag. And he's talking about Mike Alfred saying, they want you out of these stocks ASAP. In fact, they need you out so badly for some reason. Will you help them out and sell? The answer is yes, I am selling because they're all at top of the market. They're all at the top of the market. I mean, look at Iris Energy. Iris Energy disconnected from Bitcoin, but many of the other Bitcoin mining companies have not disconnected from Bitcoin. And as Bitcoin going down, they're going down as well. Iris Energy kind of had a little bit of a delay, right? Bitcoin topped out in October 2025. Iris Energy and some of the other Bitcoin mining companies that pivoted to AI topped out in November. That is the alt season. Everybody's waiting for alt season in the cryptos. And by the way, when I'm showing you this, the prices are going to be different by the time you're watching this video because obviously this is not a live video, but there's a lot of like low IQ people who come, they're just tourists, as we say on this channel. And they're like, but Cryptoviser, how come the price is different than when I'm watching the video? It's 95,000. When I'm watching the video, you posted this and it says 96,000. It's like, that's who we're trading against, right? And most of my viewers, you guys get it. You're very smart. You've been following what we're talking about on this channel. And by the way, if you're not, make sure you guys are subscribed and also give the video a free thumbs up because it's really important that you understand the macro understanding, the macro view of where we are, right? I mean, these kind of downtrends, people are going to say, buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip, but they're fighting the trend. The trend is your friend in the market. Now, I'm not saying to be bearish forever, right? But for instance, if you're in a short position or an inverse position, there's inverse ETFs for these. You can buy puts on these. You can just short the stock, whatever the situation is. There is a point where you need to kind of step out and de-risk and say, okay, I've taken my profits. I need to pull out. The same way that on the way up, you have to pull profits. Like even though this stock has come down 36% from its highs, if you're still in profit, that may be a good point to say, okay, I'm out of the stock. It's clearly reversing. But a lot of people don't do that, right? Same thing that we're seeing with Palantir and the AI stocks. These companies are not making that much money and they're having to scale up substantially, right? Look at this stock. Palantir in the last 1 year went from $60, $50, like $50, $60, all the way up to where we are today, basically 2x, right? 200% return. It's a $400 billion company, but they're not actually making that much money. Last year, they made $3 billion. This year, they're on pace to make about $3 billion as well in revenue. That's not even in EBITDA or in like what their profits are. And so this is trading hundreds of times above their earnings. And it probably, in my view, based on my analysis, shouldn't be. And so what we're seeing is a macro correction, a macro bubble pop, a macro downtrend. And people are going to keep fighting this. They're going to keep saying, buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip. Same thing we're hearing in crypto. Cryptoviser, we're not at the top of the market. Ryan Adams saying, I hope this is not the end of the cycle because we didn't reach peak euphoria. It's like, imagine Tom Lee and imagine Consensus didn't start SharpLink and Bitmine Immersion Technologies, the Ethereum treasury companies. Ethereum wouldn't even hit $5,000, let alone maybe 4,800 or 4,700. But these are opportunities, right? Because we are ahead of this curve. We have been ahead since the middle of the year. So we're making money on the downtrend while everybody's losing money on the downtrend who's still bullish. And at some point, we're going to reverse, right? We're going to pull out of these positions, wait, and then reverse back in. But it's going to take a while, and we're going to have a slow grind down, as Ryan says here, right? A slow apathy grind down in the markets. And most of that is going to be because the bulls are going to keep saying, buy the dip, right? Mike Alfred is going to say, buy this dip. Don't sell your coin. Don't sell your stocks. I'm going to keep buying. I'm going to keep holding. Okay, you keep holding. I'm out. I am out. And I'm not telling you what to do in your portfolio, obviously. I'm just sharing my opinions and my analysis on the market. But in my view, yeah, this is definitely going to be a slow grind down, because every time that we drop, they're going to say, buy the dip. Michael Saylor's going to buy the dip. He's going to keep buying the dip. And so it prolongs the downtrend. It prolongs the bear market because they just keep buying the dip instead of let the market correct and then buy. We're going to do that. We're going to let the market correct and then we're going to buy. But personally, I don't think that we're going to be going long on this channel at least until the middle of 2026, at least. And so what does that mean? Well, we're either neutral and not doing anything, or we're short, right? We're betting against the market going higher. And there's many ways to do this. They have inverse ETFs. You can buy puts. You can just short the market. There's many different ways to do it. And all of them have been paying out. And in my view, the trade is probably one of the clearest trades that has been since the middle of the year. Because when I posted these videos about the market, correcting and all of this, it's the same thing as last cycle, right? When I said Cardano, I was selling my Cardano. People are like, Cryptoviser, you're an idiot. You're going to regret this. You are going to regret it, Cryptoviser. No, I'm not, because I don't trade based on, I just move on after a trade. Cardano went from 3 cents in the last cycle, 3 cents, which was their ICO price effectively, all the way up to $3.10, and then started dropping down precipitously. And I said, I am out. I'm still in profits. I am out. And by the way, to this day, Cardano has not recovered to the prices that I sold at. And there's still a lot of people who were saying, Cryptoviser, you're an idiot. A lot of these shills who are literally making videos saying Cryptoviser's an idiot, go on his channel and unsubscribe and downvote his videos and tell him he's an idiot. Like, they were literally doing that. And they're still locked in those positions from last cycle. And we went back down basically to 25 cents, 30 cents, and we've been kind of sitting in that 25, 30 cent range. Ethereum, this cycle, everybody was saying, including myself, I really thought that we were going to hit $10,000 at a minimum, maybe $7,000. We didn't even get above $5,000. And people are like, well, we have to hit over $5,000, Cryptoviser, so we can't get bearish yet. It's like, that's not how the market works. I mean, look at the downtrend already from the top. I mean, this is a clear peak in the market and a clear downtrend. And so just because you're in a position or you're in a position at a certain price doesn't mean the price has to go up a certain amount to satisfy your portfolio. As the bankless guys are basically saying here, it's weird that the market didn't reach euphoria. No, it didn't reach euphoria for your position, but it reached euphoria for Solana. Solana went from $8 to $260. Was I wrong about that call? Yeah. I thought Solana was done after the last bear market, right? After the FTX collapse. But it recovered. Is it going back down? Maybe not to $8, but I mean, it's already halved basically in price. Hyperliquid went into euphoria. SWI went into euphoria. These were all new coins. And then the insiders started selling. And as the insiders started selling, they started to sell off. While the insiders were basically like, we don't know why it's going down, everybody. We have an extended cycle. No, there's no extended cycle. That's nonsense. And so one of the other coins that we talked about this cycle was Internet Computer, right? Internet Computer was the worst performing top 50 crypto from January through October. And I made a video in November that I sold most or all of my position. And then magically, look at this, the day that I posted the video, it starts pumping 3 or 4x. So it's the worst performing crypto all year. And then Cryptoviser posts a video, and then magically, the price goes up. And then magically, I get all these bots on the channel saying, Cryptoviser, you're going to regret selling. You're going to have to buy back at a higher price. Same thing that happened with Cardano in the last cycle. This is a fake out pump, as you guys can clearly see, right? Pump, dump. It moved up based on no fundamentals. I think that there was clear manipulation going on there to convince people that it wasn't a bad buy. But that also tells me that the whole year, the reason it's been underperforming was because the manipulation has been draining the people who are bullish on this crypto, people who are bullish on the technology. They're buying in thinking, wow, this is going to go up. And whether it's whales, whether it's traders, whoever it is that's manipulating the price, they have been consistently draining into the market, draining into your liquidity. You were the exit liquidity. We were the exit liquidity for them. And the minute a video goes up saying, I sold, I'm out, this is the worst performing crypto, we have to change we have to pump the stock. So they pump the stock or pump the crypto to make it look like it's actually moving up based on fundamentals, and it's not. It was the worst performing crypto all year. It's not going to change in 1 week because Cryptoviser posts a video that's saying that he sold some or all of his position. So that's not how I invest. And by the way, I'd rather roll that into non-manipulated assets that are very clear, like MicroStrategy. We know where it's going. By the way, anyway, moving on, because I can go on and on about this forever. But I think you guys get the point. The point is that we are at the end of the cycle, and at the end of the cycle, there's clear disconnects from, these cryptos, what they've been doing all year, to all of a sudden they do some other crazy stuff, right? Solana, all cycle's been going up, boom, it's going down. Hyperliquid's been going up all cycle, boom, it starts going down. SWI, sideways trading for the last few months, right? But I thought that SWI was going to solve all the problems of the world. Boom, straight down. That's a disconnect. It's a huge disconnect. And then where else do we see the liquidity getting drained, right? This is the second liquidity drain of the year. The first liquidity drain was the Bitcoin treasury companies, the Ethereum treasury companies, and all the other IPOs like Bullish, like Gemini, like Circle. They IPO'd in the middle of the year when we called the top of the market, because that's a liquidity drain in the cycle. Now, Grayscale filing for the IPO. And by the way, the day that they filed for their IPO, they had record outflow of the Grayscale ETF. Over $300 million of Bitcoin exited. That's a disconnect. That's a liquidity suck from the market. And when you see liquidity getting drained from the market, you start to see the disconnects. And when the disconnects occur, in my view, that is the time to get the F out. Now, we on this channel, we've been getting out because we foresaw this occurring because it happens every cycle. And you can see on the way up, people get euphoric and they forget that we're going to rotate into a bear market. Those are the signals. Get the F out. And so that brings us to the next liquidity suck of the market, which is the XRP ETF. It generated $58 million in trading in 1 day in volume, surpassing Bitwise Solana ETF launch. But what does XRP do? Who is using XRP? Why is Ripple selling their XRP? Well, Canary Capital's XRP ETF began trading and generated $58 million in volume. So this is it's called Canary XRP ETF, XRPC on the stock market. When I'm recording this is the second day or third day that it's out, and it's $5 million in assets, meaning assets under management, $5 million. That's how much inflow they've had. I thought that everybody loves XRP. I thought XRP was going to be the currency of the world. Disconnect, liquidity drain. That's what's going on. I told my viewers, when these ETFs launch, it is net bearish. It's a net bearish thing because this shows whether the narrative is true or bullshit, right? It shows. Everybody says, oh no, XRP is the best, XRP, all the XRP army love it and defend it to the teeth, right? But watch what happens over the next couple of months. If nobody's buying into it, the price is going to crater because the narrative collapses that institutions really want to hold this coin. Do they really? Or is it just the narrative? I mean, Ripple doesn't want to hold it. That's why they sell it every single month. How can you be bullish on that? So these are the things that we look for, right? The other thing to keep in mind is Bitcoin maximalist Jack Dorsey embraces stablecoin payments and Cash App on Solana. Wait a minute. What happened to using the Bitcoin blockchain? What happened to using the Lightning Network? You got Bitcoin maxis pushing Solana. Western Union, which was, by the way, XRP. I thought XRP was going to be the cross-border payment coin of the world. Why is Jack Dorsey not using XRP? Western Union had a partnership with Ripple. They're not even using XRP. Western Union is going to launch their Solana-based dollar stablecoin on Solana. So this is where we see the narrative starting to disconnect, where you see that, these influencers or YouTubers or analysts keep saying, oh, just wait a little bit, hold a little bit longer. We're almost there. We're almost at that pump. And it's like, what pump? We haven't had a pump the whole bull market. And just because your coin didn't pump doesn't mean we were not in a bull market. Bitcoin went from $15,500 to $127,000. Solana went from $8 to $260. The Bitcoin mining companies that pivoted to AI went from, in the 1 year chart, you can see here $5 to $70. MicroStrategy went from, in the bear market, I think $100 to $400. NVIDIA went to $5 trillion. Palantir tripled in the last year. Bitfarms went from 70 cents to almost $7. We had a bull market. We are at the end stages of the bull market. And so this tells us where we need to be. We need to be out of the markets for the most part, because the markets are drawing down. And the fear and people are still buying the dips. They still think, oh no, the bull cycle's not over. Cryptoviser's an idiot. The bull cycle's not over. It's okay. We've been calling this for months, and we've been preparing our portfolios, and we have been winning. While everybody's freaking out, we're making money. And there's going to be a day that we're going to flip and say we're no longer bearish on the market. Now we're buying the market. There's a point that I believe that I'm going to be buying heavily into MicroStrategy, heavily into these AI plays. But we have a lot to come down first, because after a pump, we have to have a dump. And in terms of crypto, honestly, I don't think that most cryptos are going to make it, because Wall Street is in control now, and they're focused on stable coins. They're focused on Bitcoin. They're not even really focused on Ethereum, guys. They're focused, JPM coin is being listed on certain banks and exchanges to transact. The banks are in control. Wall Street is in control, and they're going to drain all of these to zero, in my view. Most of them, most of these cryptos are going to zero, especially the ones that pumped this cycle that are not going to do well in a bear cycle. Potentially the Hyperliquids of the world, the Asters of the world, because that's just how these market cycles work in crypto. And so where do you sit in what you're doing in your portfolio? I really am curious what you guys are doing in your portfolios, because if you go to my YouTube page, youtube.com/thecryptoviser, or click my link down below, and then just click on the posts tab. And yeah, it's interesting because I said, are we at the end of the crypto bull cycle? Yes, we're moving into a bear market. No, bull market continues. Go take this poll. There's also a poll from a few months before that, or 1 month before that, that says, have you sold any of your crypto? Are we at the end of the bull cycle? And it's surprising how many of my viewers take these polls and still think that we're in the bull cycle. But we are prepared. We have been prepared. We've been doing all of the right moves in this market. We've been so correct based on our analysis so far. Way, way ahead of most of the other YouTubers and influencers and analysts. And I would agree with Peter Brandt that the market top, macro, in most of the markets has been hit. And until we get a liquidity injection of massive money printing, which hasn't happened yet, and even though the Federal Reserve is lowering rates, that's not money printing. It's not fixing the issue. The money printing will. And that's going to solve a lot of different areas of the market, including the housing, including home ownership, including the ability to have some more, pocket change after you pay your bills. But right now, people are squeezed tight. And so when people are squeezed tight, they're going to be exiting positions that are highly risky. And that creates a spiral to the downside, AKA a bear market. I'll see you guys on the next video. Don't forget to give this video a free thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.